Hello and welcome to the Hoop Collective podcast. We talk about the NBA, which we are doing for me on Tuesday afternoon over here in Europe, which we'll talk about later. I'm over here to see the Pacers and Spurs play this week. Joining us from Naples, Florida, is our front office insider. He's really just our insider, Bobby Marks.
Hey guys, how are you?
So Bobby, we have you on today to talk NBA as usual. We will get to that. But really, the main reason you're here is because of our special guest joining us on the podcast, who's got, you know, as far as non-playing goes, this is a pretty big week for Mr. Vince Carter, who's joining us from Atlanta, where he's doing TNT work before going to New York later this week. So Vince, you are, for the second time this season, having your number retired. This week, the Brooklyn Nets, but the New Jersey Nets, really. The New Jersey Nets are retiring number 15. So first off, congratulations.
Thank you.
And I got to say, this is what's going on this week in Vince Carter's life. There's a documentary being released on his time with the Nets. There's a premiere, isn't there? Isn't there like a formal premiere?
The premiere is on the 23rd.
The Empire State Building is lighting up in New Jersey Nets colors, right, Bobby? It's going red, white.
I love those colors.
Yes.
Yeah, red, white, and blue. New Jersey Nets colors. And you have an event at the Empire State Building, Mr. Carter.
Yes.
Your number is being retired on Saturday night against the Miami Heat, and then Sunday, the Buffalo Bills, who you recently became a part owner of, are playing in the AFC Championship game in Kansas City.
In Kansas City. And it's my birthday.
My gosh. And it's
my
your birthday.
Also the 26th as well.
Oh, but happy birthday early. By the way, also your bobblehead night on Saturday.
Yeah. Yes.
I mean, what else can we get in, Bobby? I mean, geez.
It's a lot going on.
It's a lot going on.
And then let me add to that, after all of that's done, it's time to unwind and get back into studio mode, because that Tuesday I'll be back in studio calling some games. So doing what I do.
Amazing. Well, first off, congratulations on all that.
Thank you.
Like the reason we got Bobby here is because how many years, Bobby? 20?
Well, we traded for Vince. The Nets traded for Vince in 2004. So it's been, we had the 20-year anniversary back in early mid-December, I think, when that trade happened here. It feels like it was just the other day when we traded for Vince from Toronto. And Windy had texted me this morning, and he said, like, hey, you have any thoughts like with Vince coming on? And I like sent him like a 500-word article that I had written when Vince got into the Hall of Fame here, just kind of my thoughts on, and we're certainly going to talk about it as far as when we made the trade to get Vince and kind of his impact. And I will say this on record, and Jason Kidd did wonders for our organization. Certainly when we got Jason traded in 2001, we go to 2 NBA finals, but getting Vince in that trade, I to this day, I still say saved the franchise. And why I say that is that we were in a dark time. Like we had just lost to Detroit in 7 games. That Pistons team, I always teased Chauncey. I said, if you didn't hit that shot in game 5 to beat us in triple overtime. Well, we beat them in triple overtime, but that game like took the life out of us. We would have, I don't know, maybe things would have been a little bit different, but the team was in disarray. Jason was out. He had microfracture surgery before the start. He literally played the whole year with like one leg. Kerry Kittles had been traded to the Clippers for, I don't know, future second. Kenyon was traded to Denver. And
the decision was made. I remember being in Las Vegas when Kenyon Martin showed up to a Nuggets Summer League game.
Yeah.
That was back when not all free agency got done on June 30th, Vince. It was like July 7th or 8th. And like that night, it was because the Nets were agreeing to send Kenyon Martin, still very much in his prime, basically for draft picks, right, Bobby? It was like
I remember. Listen, the decision was made. The decision was made in in New York City. I still remember the meeting. Myself, Rod Thorne, Lawrence Frank, Ed Stefanski, and went over to New York and met with a group of Wall Street investors who were thinking about buying the team to join forces with Bruce Ratner. And I remember them giving a presentation This is when analytics were starting to come in. And basically, and no offense to Jerome Williams, the junkyard dog, basically
JYD
compared Kenyon to to Jerome Williams as far as what his production was and what his value was. And I think his value was like a $3 million player. And we walked out of there and I said, I don't think we're going to be able to sign Mr. Martin here. and that certainly changed the course of the franchise.
So Vince, I was the day, I don't know if you remember this, but you got traded to New Jersey. And I actually was at the game where you came and you sat on the bench for a game in the suit, I assume.
Right. Yeah.
And they introduced you. And there was not that big of a crowd at the Brendan Byrne Arena, whatever it was called at that time. But that was the beginning, and that was a huge moment. When you came to the Nets, it was a very pivotal moment in your career because you had asked for a trade away from the Raptors, and the Nets were on the decline. So that ended up being a really important moment that, when you made that transition.
Yeah, it was a strange moment for me how it happened. I'll never forget. We were in Indiana and had a brief conversation with Mr. Babcock, and he had said, rest in peace to Mr. Babcock. He said, oh, no, all is quiet. Nothing's there. I go to take my nap. Pre-game nap because I'm going over early, like I normally do. I was injured with an Achilles, so I was going over early to get my work in and to progress to hopefully get back on the court. And when I wake up, my phone was out of control, like with text message, people calling, and the first person that calls me is Gary Sussman. That I finally talked to. I talked to Suss, and he's like, welcome me to the team, and
he was the head of the Nets PR and famously also the public address announcer.
Yes, that's where VC3 came from. And did you see VC? Right. It started from him. And I'm still groggy, waking up, trying to just process all this. Like, wait, what just happened? He literally 2 hours ago, it was nothing there. And I was like, all right, cool. We, let me go over there and get work done. And next thing I know, I'm like, okay, what happens next? And one of the first people I talked to was Jalen Rose. And I'm like, because I've never been traded before. I said, so what happens now? The team's getting ready to go. We're sitting in the hallway chatting because back in that time, as you know, guys would just sit in the hallway and just chat and communicate and have real conversation as opposed to how things are now. And so we're just sitting there, all the guys, talking. Alvin Williams, I remember talking to him on the phone, but all the guys were just chatting. And they leave, and I'm just sitting in the hotel, like, all right. But the cool thing about it is the team, the Raptors. After I sat and watched it in the game in the hotel. The Raptors actually team bus comes back and picks me up. I get on the bus and I fly back to Toronto with the Raptors team. Why? Because the Nets were playing the Raptors in Toronto.
Oh my gosh!
A couple of days later. Which was it was so awkward. So when I got there, I remember being I don't know if it was you, Bobby, or maybe Rod, or someone telling me that don't come to the game, which was also awkward. Just watching it on TV, that like the new team I'm playing for, the team I play for, literally across the street, and I'm here packing stuff in because I'm gonna get on the plane with my new team to come to Jersey. So it was a very interesting couple of days for me.
Well, I mean, and kind of peeling back the layers from that, we were, I don't know, 10 games below 500 at the time when we had made the trade, and Jason was close to coming back. And I remember how the setup was in our old practice facility in East Rutherford was that Rod Thorne, our president, his office was up top, and my office was below him, directly below him. And I remember whenever Rod or his secretary would call for me to come up, if I ever came up and the door was shut, I knew we had something going, right? Like I knew. So I walk up there, the door shut. I walk in there and he says, hey, grab a notepad. Look at this for me. I think we have a chance to get Vince Carter. And I looked at him like, all right, for who? And he said, Eric Williams, Aaron Williams, Alonzo Mourning, who had been out because he had the kidney transplant, and two of the first round picks we had gotten from Denver in the Kenyon Martin sign and trade. And usually I'll go down and I'll run the numbers and we'll lay it out. And I said, do it. Do it. and we were able to yeah, and I don't even know if we even sat on it for a day, but we were able to get that deal done. And I remember when Vince came into Teterboro Airport, because it was so cold,
cold.
and picking him up and taking him to get his physical. And you're right, he was, out for a little bit. And it was a great, certainly, going to the playoffs. We wound up going to the playoffs that year. Back then it was best of 5. We get in the playoffs. The last game of the year, we beat the Celtics, and we play Miami. Best of 5 in with Shaq Miami. And Zoe, I think, had gotten back to Miami. He was on that team also, which was and then we go to the playoffs for the next, I don't know, 3 or 4 years. Could never get past the Heat, and then certainly LeBron and his early days with Cleveland in the conference semifinals. But it was a terrific run. I think my biggest memory of Vince, and certainly besides going back to Toronto and hitting a game-winning shot and all the dunk in Miami, was the San Antonio game that Vince played in, where
at home.
Vince had it going. Like, I think he would have went for 60 points that game. And he had gotten teed up for something before. And this is when Bruce Bowen was on the Spurs.
Yeah.
And, Bruce was known for stepping under players when they were shooting 3. And Vince shot a 3 and he landed on him. And this was, he's coming off, Achilles, ankle, and Vince went crazy, right? He won. And so they throw him out of the game. Vince gets teed up, throw him out of the game. And after the game, so Rod Thorne and I would sit in a suite in a corner of the Meadowlands. The two of us sat there for 10 years, every home game. I sat in the front, he sat in the back. And after the game, he says to me, "Let's go." And we go down the back stairwell, and the stairwell leads us to the officials' locker room.
That's interesting design.
And Rod remember, Rod used to be the head of the officials. Rod is banging on the door, like, for them, like, to come out, right? And I remember, and this triggered me because Brian, you had Jimmy Capers on, I think, on a recent pod, and his dad was a referee observer. And I said to Jimmy Capers, I said, "This is blank and bup. I started cursing at him. Like, this doesn't happen nowadays, right? Like this.
Well, nowadays there's a security guard posted at the door.
Yeah.
That prevents this sort of nonsense from you out of control front office types.
So I'm yelling at him, and he looks at me and he says, "Bobby, I'll take Rod. I ain't taking your tonight." And that was it. And I just walked down the hallway. But that's one of the, besides everything else that Vince has done, that's the game that stands out as far as that San Antonio game.
I'm going to answer that real quick before you go forward, Wendy, because with all of that going on there, I'm steaming, obviously, after the locker room, after getting ejected in the locker room. I'm coming out after the game. Bruce and I had some words with him because I knew what he was doing. I knew what he was doing. And, like Bobby said, I was having a night. So we kind of get into it. And I was literally out there waiting for them to come out of that locker room. And I remember Christian and obviously everyone else, security or whatever, like, "No, this is not a good idea," whatever. I was like, "No, he needs to hear what I got to say. And then we can go from there." Like that. It was that intense, obviously.
I mean, this is not the stories of Vince getting ejected and going after a guy in the back, Bobby. This wasn't what I thought I was going to get into with this honorarium podcast.
And I see Courtney Kirkland often, and he's the one guy that to this day I still go up and shake his hand and give him a hug and say thank you, because he was the guy when it happened. I got up and I started running towards him to pretty much throw a punch. Courtney was the guy who tackled me and saved me from doing something crazy. So to this day.
So just to be clear, because I've never heard this story. So this is post game in the back. You're going for Bruce Bowen, like, to punch him. You were planning. During the game.
When the shot happened, I land on him and he runs down. I get up because I knew what he was doing. That's how I got ejected, because I was running. I direct beeline to Bruce.
Okay.
Like it was one of those. Like, it was the trigger. It was the trigger because we'd already gotten the technical for back and forth. So that's why that happened. And then trying to calm myself down, being ejected after the game. Now game's over. they got to go to the bus type thing. So, yeah.
So I have listened to stories with my colleague Richard Jefferson talk about what it was like to play with Jason Kidd. When you got to Brooklyn, New Jersey, sorry, after all of that you'd gone through, the breakup in Toronto, we're not going to go over that old ground. And you got to play with Jason Kidd, Hall of Fame point guard. What was that situation like for you?
And this is something I'm going to probably mention the retirement night, but like I've mentioned it before. It playing against him or playing with him in All-Star games is one thing, but being a teammate is another thing. And I'll never forget the first game playing with Jay Kidd. Him throwing a lob to me, and he threw the lob so darn high, and it kind of goes out of bounds. Jay Kidd could care less about a turnover because he didn't get many of them, and his assist to turnover ratio was next level. But I remember he goes down the court and he looks at me and he's like, "Oh wow." He's like, "I just wanted to see how high I can throw it to see, measure where you're gonna go." And I told him before, I was like, "You throw it, I'm gonna try. I'm never gonna look at the ball like, that's too high. I might not be able to get it. I was gonna always try." So I think from that moment on, J Kidd coming back, the excitement, what could be, him throwing that lob to test the waters, me saying, I'll go try. If you throw it over the backboard, I'm gonna try. I always feel like I can at least get a fingertip on it or something to preserve the play. And we hit the ground running. And I remember him having to yell at me. And this is when I say yell, Jay didn't say much. He showed by his play on the court. And when he had something to say, he said it. So everybody's like, "Oh shoot, shut up, Jason's talking." He said to me one time, "I'm being hesitant, trying to fit in." He's like, "That's not what we brought you here for." And the rest was history. So I got a lot of backlash from Raptors fans because, how come we didn't see this version? I'm like, okay, when I played in Toronto, I had to create on my own, which obviously I learned how to do. I'm now playing with one of the best point guards ever. And now I just have to do is the back end of that is score the basketball. Everything else was set up. So he made the game so easy for me. And once we hit our stride, once he said that to me, it was just play and go. Because RJ always said, he's like, "Look, you're playing with Jason Kidd. When Twin gets the rebound or when J Kidd gets the rebound, run." And RJ used to just take off running. And I was watching how easily he was getting easy baskets. He's like, "I can get 10 points just from running because J Kidd's going to throw the ball ahead." So if you look at the back half of my time there, it was a foot race on both wings to see who can outrun who, because I'm open. RJ's like, "I'm open." Like it was that fun and that easy to play with Jay.
Yeah. And you ended up really flourishing there. There were people who thought maybe your best days were behind you. I don't know. There wasn't maybe, Bobby, was there robust trade offers for Vince? I remember it taking a little while.
No, I mean, we kind of just snuck in there. I mean, really, I think it was just, I think the appeal for Toronto to get some first round picks back, I think was pretty desirable, but it's not like, we didn't back then in 2004 is not like 2000.
They didn't know you had 15 years left in you, Vince. They didn't know you had 15 years left.
There was no Twitter or social media to be known that Vince Carter is available in trades, right? Like It was basically, we did it the old fashioned way. You call teams and see who's available. And if you call a team and it says, "Yeah, we're thinking of doing something," okay, this is what our best offer could be here. Unfortunately for us, Toronto was going in a different direction that we were able to get something done there.
So, I don't know how you feel, Vince, about your last moment in the NBA. I think it's kind of like a melancholy moment. In a way, people thought it was really cool. It was the night that the league shut down with COVID. I'll let you tell the story. You hit a 3-pointer to as the game ended, and everybody kind of realized this could be it. I don't know what your memories are of that night. I certainly remember that. But before,
what do you remember from it first? I'd love to hear your version.
So what I remember about that was the league was shutting down. You remember Mark Cuban remember that night,
Yeah.
Mark Cuban saw his phone, like walked over and showed the refs, like, we're shutting down. So Lloyd Pierce is your coach. And like, I don't, it seems crazy to me in the moment that people were coming to the realization that like the season could be over tonight. Like, to me, I remember thinking, well, we're going to shut down for a few weeks here. But like, I guess it was understood like this could be it for you. And so they put you out there and you hit this three, which was celebratory. And it was like, people were like, well, if that was Vince Carter's last moment, that's great. And I was like, how could it be Vince Carter's last moment? I'm not ready in my mind to have this happen. What was your memory for you for that night?
So yes, we were playing the New York Knicks. And prior to that, we had a meeting with ownership and executives, everyone coming down, explaining what could happen if. So if there's a player who came up positive, the league would shut down for 2 weeks, so on and so forth, and then they would resume if everything, and there weren't any other players that came up positive. So we're like, okay, cool. This is new. We're like, yeah, cool, whatever. Like, you know how that goes. Go play the game. And halftime is when they got the word about Rudy Gobert. And they were trying to rush halftime, us to finish the game. So we got the game started. We're playing, and you could see everybody on their phone, not really watching the game. We don't know anything. We're learning. We just heard what we heard. We're still playing the game. So now comes the fourth quarter. Knicks are up. And then it comes like the last 5 minutes, and they're starting to chant. I'm on the bench. They're starting to chant. I'm like, man, please. I can always go back in 2 weeks or whenever the league resumes. And at about 3 minutes left in the game, they're still chanting. I'd already blocked it out. Dwayne Dedmon sat next to me, and he said, Vince, do you realize this might be your last game? This could possibly be your last game. I said, yeah, that's crazy. And as I sat there for like 2 minutes, I was like, damn, this might be my last game. So now we're standing up and they're chanting again. They're pushing at about a minute and a half. LP Lloyd Pierce looks over and he's like, I was like, all right, cool. I'll go in. I'll go in. And so I check in, everybody's cheering, and it was a cool moment. And as I got to the table, I was like, damn, this might be my last game for real. So when I got in the game, I'll never forget the first thing Trae Young going to throw you the lob. I said, hell no, you're not throwing me a lob. You know how long I've been sitting on that bench over there? I said, hell no.
I'm 40 years old, buddy.
Are you crazy? I'm 43 over here. Like, I need time to warm up. So, and I remember saying something to RJ Barrett about this, and he's like, man, this might be your last. So we're all coming to the realization, and they're like, take the shot. I'll let you take the shot.
Like the Knicks are saying, take the shot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was like, I'm pride. Like, no. But like when I got the ball, if you watch it, people are kind of backing off. So that is more pressure.
No
it's
kidding.
Like that open, right?
Yeah.
It's like that open shot that you get. Sometimes you got to take the dribble. So in my mind, I'm like, shoot this like it's the second quarter. Not like, don't worry about, don't think of the fact that you've been sitting there forever and this could be your last shot. So I kind of stepped into it, shot it as if I was on fire. And it went in. And that's why I did like this. I said, thank you, because I'm like, all right, if I miss this shot, I'm going to run this ball down. I just want to see the ball go in. I think that's why I was at peace with my career ending that way more so than everyone else, which I'm very appreciative of, because I can't imagine, guys, how miserable I would have been the following year. My career ended on a miss that they let me shoot. And I didn't put the ball in with time. And I had time to actually, if I missed it, hopefully they let me get the rebound or whatever. But I made it, and I was kind of at peace at that point.
So you went into the Hall of Fame last year, and now you're having your number retired in all these places, and being honored this way. And one of the things that I've noticed, like especially about you and Tracy McGrady are always linked because you're related. You guys came in at the same time. And one of the things, I had a great opportunity to work with both of you, so I know you guys a little bit. And one of the things I've seen is that, this generation of player, like a lot of them, and I mean, like, not even the guys who are rookies now, I'm not talking about like the Chet Holmgrens of the world, but the guys who have been in the league for a few years, like they came up, you know, like it was amazing to me as guys would come through the studio, and they would come up and they would see T-Mac and they would treat him with such reverence. And I see the same thing with you. How was that to be kind of in the league with guys who had this reverence for you because you'd been in the league 20 years?
The first the first year, so the first time it had happened, where there was guys that come in the games like, hey man, I'm a big fan. I had your poster on my wall when I was a kid. Like, and it's like, damn, was that a shot or is that
yeah, like saying, now I'm gonna dunk on you, old man?
Or is it appreciation? You know, showing appreciation. And obviously, that's just how I took it at first, and I had a hard time accepting that because it's like, man, this is weird. Like, I just never imagined. I just remember going from the youngest guy, now in the middle, to close to the back end, to the back end, one of the older guys, to the oldest guy. And once I got used to it, like maybe a year or two later, particularly my last 2 or 3 years, it was a badge of honor. And particularly my last year, because I'm like, hey, I'm 43. I'm still able to play this game, compete, can still score when I need to, when asked. And it was more of appreciation. I was able to accept it, but at first I struggle with that. I can't. I really don't know why, but like as I got older, I'm like, yo, you should be proud of this. Like, you're probably their dad's age. Like Trae Young, I played against Trae's dad in college. We played against Texas Tech when Darvin Ham broke the backboard. His dad was on that team against Carolina. Like,
that's amazing.
Yeah, so it's just like, accept that. Like, you're doing something that a lot of people can't do or doesn't want to do or doesn't get the opportunity to do. So leading into my last year, though it was tough for the 43-year-old guy to stay motivated, to work out at the same time, it's like, don't disrespect the game and don't work out. So I made sure I was ready to play and did all the work that I needed to do just to show, hey, 43-year-old can keep up with you, young 18, 19, 20-year-old. And I enjoyed it after a while.
You brought up Carolina, so I'm going to ask you something that I talk to Carolina people about, and you just be 100% honest, please. So there's this concept that had Kobe Bryant gone to college, which it's moot because he didn't go to college, that he would have gone to Duke. He had this connection with Coach K, and, he was sort of seen like somehow, Rob Pelinka, who was his agent, he had a lot of Duke guys, but the Kobe Bryant I know was not a Duke player. He was a North Carolina player.
And go back to one of his first interviews. The one thing he said is if he was going to college, he wanted to go to Carolina.
Okay, I didn't remember that. Okay.
To play against me because Kobe and I played AAU together. So he learned, he knew who, obviously who I was and how I played. And that was a barometer that he wanted. He said, I wanted to go to Carolina to play against him every day. So the Duke thing started to come around later on. I started hearing like, oh, I wanted to go to Duke. I'm like, there's an interview out there because of his high school coach who said he saw this high school player play left-handed because he broke his right arm. I broke my arm in the game, but I continued to play the game left-handed.
Wait, I don't know the story. Stop. Maybe it's legendary. Bobby, do you know the story?
No, I don't. I've never heard this story.
Okay, we're going to have to stop. I need all the details. Start over and tell me this story, Tracy. Tracy. Vince, tell me this story.
So we're playing in a basketball tournament in, I want to say, Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. And I'm going to dunk, kid runs up under me. I fall, boom, hit the ground. And my wrist is nasty. Now that
happened to LeBron. That was LeBron's worst ever injury. He got undercut in a game and broke his wrist. Same
thing. Then I fall, get up. I'm playing, so I try to shoot. I was like, I can't. But I always just.
So you're looking down at your wrist and you see that your wrist is like broken.
Like in pain. And every time I caught the ball and tried to bend it, I couldn't. So I passed a little bit. Yeah. So then I go and I'm like, so I was like, I could play. I'll play. So I played the game. And I'll never forget, Antoine Jameson was in that tournament. Shaheen Holloway was there.
The coach at
Jermaine O'Neal was there. was on that team. He played for Eau Claire, I think that was his high school, and BJ Mackey at Irmo. So those guys, a couple of
Jermaine
guys
O'Neal
who were
was
there
from South Carolina. Yeah, for
from
sure.
South Carolina. So they all played in this tournament. But I played in the game, and we're playing against the whole school, and I'm shooting and scoring, driving, finishing left-handed. I'm having to dribble, pick it up, shoot left-handed just because. And I guess Kobe's high school coach, I think, saw this, heard about it, something, and goes back and tells Kobe, and that was his fuel. It doesn't need much to fuel Kobe anyway. And that's where that came from. Because right after that tournament, I took my visit to Chapel Hill with a arm sling and all everything, cast the whole nine. That was my visit to Carolina. So we did. My family was already at the tournament in South Carolina, so we just kept on going.
Yeah.
That was it.
So I'm glad you told that story because, I just, I didn't know Kobe well, but I knew Kobe, and I know Duke, and I know Carolina, and Kobe's Jordan. He's not, he's not one of these Duke guys. Come on. I'm so glad that you set the record straight on that.
Yeah. But I mean, I understand his admiration for Coach K. I mean, he's all right.
No, I mean, of course,
coach,
that's not what it's about.
If you like that kind of coach or whatever, but I'm just kidding. But
no, listen, man. I mean,
no, I'm just kidding. But I
say what you got to say.
That,
you won't hear any objection over here. Yeah. So Bobby, how was life different when Vince became a net in New Jersey?
Well, I think more people came to games.
That's for sure.
I mean, you got to remember the Meadowlands. Even when we got Jason in the trade in 2001, people weren't coming. Like I remember we played the then Seattle Supersonics and we were like 10-3 this is in 2001 on a Saturday afternoon. We had 4,000 people for the game.
That's crazy.
So that's why when I said that, Vince, saved the organization and stuff, it was we had it was kind of a dead end. Because Bruce Ratner had bought the team with the intent of moving to Brooklyn. The goal was to get to Brooklyn in like 2008.
Yeah, he was a real estate guy who needed a team to use eminent domain, because one of the things you can use eminent domain for is a sports arena. So he's like, all right, who's for sale? I can buy the Nets. I'll buy the Nets so I can put a sports arena here so I can build a real estate development. Is that summary? Is that a good summary?
Yeah, I mean, and that's the perfect summary. But the hard part was that the market eventually crashes, and then we're in New Jersey for
ever
not 8 years, 9 years and stuff. And
well, real quick, Bobby, before you go any further, so when I get traded there, we're doing appearances in 04 and 05. Some in Jersey, but some in Brooklyn starting to create the buzz there at that point. So this is 2005. We're starting to go over there. And at the time, we weren't accepted. Bobby, you recall this, and you can continue, but we weren't accepted in Brooklyn. They were like, man, go back to Jersey. They didn't want us there. We're doing appearances like, the Nets will come here soon. They're like, oh, man, go back to Jersey. Like, it was like that. I was like, yo, this is crazy. This might not happen.
Well, that... And then the as Brian said, the eminent domain factor, where they didn't want an arena there. Like, people were being displaced for a new arena to go there. So it was like a really weird in between time as far as playing in New Jersey, eyes on Brooklyn, not getting there, eventually moving in 2012. I will say this though, the end comes, right? We Jason, and I was talking to a team about this yesterday because we were talking about Jimmy Butler and everything. And I said, like, what Jimmy did is like no different. Like, like people asked to be traded. I remember Jason asked to be traded in that 2007-08 season here. We didn't have social media then, right? Like it wasn't blown up and everything like that. And I always tease Richard about this because I said, and I use Vince as an example. I go, hey, Richard, we traded Vince to his, home, we sent him back to Orlando.
He sure did.
And I said, and we sent you to Milwaukee. And that was kind of the, listen, once Jason got traded to Dallas in 2008, then that kind of became the end. That team basically, we tried to splinter it apart and everyone kind of went their separate ways. But for that period of, for that period of 4 years, we had a really good team. The unfortunate thing is that we lost to the Miami team that went on to win the NBA championship in 06. And then the San Antonio LeBron team that lost to the Cleveland LeBron team that lost to San Antonio in the finals.
It was a close 6-game series. I covered the series. It was a close 6-game
series. Well, even the Miami series, just going back real quick, we won game 1 down there. We blew their doors off. And I remember we come home 1-1. And this is when marijuana testing was.
I remember it like we just said.
You test positive for marijuana, and you're a repeater. You're done for like 3 games, right? And I remember getting ready for game 3, and we're in our video shoot around in our video room, and we get noticed that Cliff Robinson, rest in peace, had gotten suspended for violating the.
Didn't he open like a marijuana business after he retired?
He did. He did, and that was the end of that, and we wound up losing I think we lost in 5 games that series. But it was as we did as much as we could, to try to piece it together. And I think, certainly without getting Vince in 04, we wouldn't have had, the success we had in those 3 to 4 years.
Those were great years though, because, there was always a buzz, even though the arena was junky, there was like always a buzz there. Like Jay-Z started coming to games. That helped. And, like Gary Sussman, the PA announcer, that's what I would always remember, because he would, call out the names, and then and if Jason Kidd would have the assist, he had this classic call. He would say, how did he used to phrase it for you, Vince, when you would score? He would say, he'd say Vince Carter, and then he would pause for a second, and he would go, "From Jason Kidd."
Yes, from Jason Kidd. Yes, he did.
Because he would always, say when Jason had an assist, and he would say it like really, really fast. And
Suss brought like a unique, way and excitement. And it went from not that many fans to actually get fans in there, because we became a highlight factory. J Kidd just doing what he does, throwing the ball out. Like I said, RJ and I trying to see who can get down there first. And it got to where J Kidd throwing the ball up in the air. You're seeing RJ try to go and then we try to go for it, or off the backboard, or just J Kidd being J Kidd. So it became a thing, and we started winning and more TV games. And now you look in the stands and there's more people there and there's more excitement. So it was cool to kind of see where it started and obviously where it ended.
Who do you like in today's game? Who do you like watching, Vince?
I like watching Shea. Shea Gilgeous is one guy that I'm a fan of. I love the way he plays. He can dictate. There's a lot of guys. I love Anthony Edwards, his game, the way he plays. I'm not a huge fan of him going away from the score that he is, settling for the threes. Because I think he has so much to offer, and he can still shoot the three, but he can set it up by his ability to get to the basket whenever he wants. So those are just a couple of guys. I mean, there's a lot of guys. I enjoy watching the OKC Thunder's team play. I love watching Boston and where they've come. I remember obviously those guys as young pups and what they're doing now. So there's a lot of guys, but those two in particular, I'm enjoying watching.
So we've got a 40-year-old in the league now with LeBron, and then in a couple of months, Chris Paul is going to turn 40, and we haven't had a 40-year-old in the league in a while.
Udonis, right?
Oh, Udonis. Well,
Udonis was the other one. Well, play. I get it.
So, listen, I'm not trying to get opposite Udonis. I mean, I'm on TV with him now, and I love it, by the way. I love working with Udonis.
He's great.
But by the time he had his 40th birthday, he had a small role on the Heat.
Yeah.
But we got 2 40-year-old starters. How about that? It's been a while since we had a 40-year-old starter. How hard is it now? Now you obviously were famous for morphing your game, and in all honesty, I mean, this has been said 1,000 times. It's not worth repeating, but people should study your career and how you lengthen your career by becoming a different type of player, and not getting it to you. But what is it like to play in the NBA past your 40th birthday, even when you're in phenomenal shape like those two guys are and you were?
What is it like? I honestly, I mean, it's a badge of honor. I think when you hear, like I said earlier, when you hear younger guys saying they look up to you, or you played against their fathers, then it's like, man, I'm old, but now it's like, but I'm still doing it. Like I played against your dad, now I'm playing against the son and still doing it. But I think, when you've done it so long, LeBron for 22 plus years, because I know he will shatter that record coming up for sure. Because I'm asked all the time, you think he'll do it? Man, like, are you guys watching? Like this guy, he has taken care of his body. But I think at that point, once you hit 40, once you get past, oh, I'm 40, like I don't think we ever thought, and I'm gonna say we, meaning them as well, because you can tell how they play. They don't think, yeah, I'm 40, I'm old. I mean, we throw it around in interviews, but when we're playing, it's just like I'm still doing it now. You know your limitations, what you can and can't do, but at the same time, LeBron is still taking off, challenging people at the rim. I wasn't afraid. I just didn't do it often. You just knew what you could do. So for me, I just said, all right, I still love playing the game, like those two guys you mentioned. So how do I continue to do that? How do I stay in this league longer? Well, I had to kind of continue to get my rest, continue to put more work in, had to get there a little earlier, had to stay a little later, all this thing, and work on other aspects. I'm not going to have the ball in my hand like those two guys are still doing. So how can I still make my worth in the league? Well, I better be a damn good shooter. I need to make sure when I shoot the ball, it's automatic. I understood the game, so I'm a great ball mover, a great facilitator. I think, I'm not a big plus minus guy for a lot of reasons, but my plus minus was good because I understood how to play the game. I could be another coach on the floor. I enjoyed that. So all the things that I still enjoyed about basketball, teaching, helping, playing, scoring, winning, obviously just competition, I still loved and was willing to do whatever. So that's why playing at 40 didn't feel weird until it was talked about.
Yeah, and by the way, so there's only 3 guys in history to play in over 1,500 regular season games. Bobby, Vince and LeBron are 2. Do you know who the third one is, Bobby?
Oh,
little trivia corner.
I don't know that.
Dirk Nowitzki. And Vince played 22 seasons, which is the record, right? That's the record. Vince, 22 is the number.
Yeah, yeah.
So this is LeBron's 22nd season, so he's going to tie you. But when you were 40, you played in 73 games. And I think like you were getting vote, like you didn't win obviously, but you were like a vote getter for 6th man of the year. When you were 42, you played in 76 games. Last year, you played in 60 games. And I don't know how many games you actually missed because the season obviously ended early because of COVID, but you played in almost every game.
Yes.
So like,
I'm gonna tell you something to that. And I told Lloyd and I said, look, this whole load management thing. So, the thing that became a thing, which, was particularly weird for me because I played in the 90s where, it's like you're missing a game because of that, that's to where we are now. So I told Lloyd, I said, look, I get it if you don't want to play me, but don't sit me just because of load management, because I knew how to take care of my body. I knew what needed to be done. So I get it. Organization protecting players from themselves sometimes, but at the same time, I was always taught the responsibility of taking care of your body because it's my job. And I think sometimes we forget that, and it's gotten lost in translation over the past couple of years to where we are with load management. But I told him, if I'm hurt and I can't play, then don't play me. But if I'm able to play, put me out there for whatever the amount of minutes you want to put me, but don't not play me just because you feel like, oh, your workload is up. Like, I don't have many years left. I'll worry about workload and all of that stuff later, because that was the mentality back then. It's like, I'm fine. Yeah. I'm fine. But, Bobby, the organizations had to save us from ourselves when, we're trying to go out there when we really need to sit. Then, up top, we're like, no, there's no, take the uniform, take the shoes. No. But now it's that you don't have to do that. It's like guys are doing it for you.
Well, and I think that's the hardest thing too, Vince, is that, when you go from Brooklyn, New Jersey to Orlando, and then did you go to Dallas right from Orlando? What was the next stop?
Phoenix.
Oh, Phoenix. your role evolved, right? Your role changed, right? You weren't the guy that they were looking for to score 27 and 28. Like you
particularly in
became
Phoenix. Yeah.
like, I remember you, in Dallas, like on those, like hitting a game winning shot in the corner in the playoffs,
Mm-hmm,
right?
mm-hmm,
Like as far as being a sixth man, accepting your role. I think
mm-hmm.
that becomes a little bit of a challenge too, certainly for players when they get, when they get older, to kind of change how they play as far as accept to a different role coming off the bench and everything like that. And I always remember when you mentioned about taking care of your body, I always remember, and this stands out for me the most, is one morning in Philadelphia. This is post Vince. This is when we had Joe Johnson on our roster. And Joe was known to take care of his body. And I remember being in the lobby and him rolling in at like, I think I was having coffee at like 6:30 in the morning. And I was with somebody and they said to me, "Oh, we're in trouble. Joe's rolling in at 6:30. No, we weren't in trouble. Joe was coming back from hot yoga. Right? Like Joe knew how to take care of his body. Like that's how he played long into this league. And I think it's, certainly, I think it's you weren't just hanging on, right? Like you weren't just signing like a minimum or a 10-day, and like you didn't just hang on to get, another contract and get your a years of service and everything like that. You were still, a contributing member in this league here.
Yeah, and I want to say, with that, and there's a lot of guys like a Joe Johnson, like LeBron, CP3, and there's a laundry list of guys. But I'm just speaking specifically older guys. I had a laundry list. I had a list of 10, 12 things that I needed to do every day. And I tell people this, and they're like, what, how did you do it? How were you able to play 20, 22 years and all these things? I said, well, I stuck to the list. I had 12 things that I needed to do. And I always did those 12 things, whatever, what they were. I didn't say, oh, okay, today I don't feel like I'm just going to do 10 of them, because eventually you start cutting off two more and two more. Then eventually you're just doing 5 or 6 of them. Then you're either injured or now you can't move or can't play. So there were things. I was just, my willingness to do what it took to stay in the league, or to play a game, or to be around, or to be a contributor, was the most important thing. So I had that list and I stuck to it. And I think that's the,
what were some of the things on this list?
Whether it was rest, sleep, getting up, stretching early. So I stretched before I went to bed, and I stretched in the morning. That's where it started. Then I would get up, I would eat something so I have enough energy. I would get over, and then I had another stretching regimen I would do with the trainer. I had to lift, get my shots up. This is game day. Get my shots up for shoot around, little small. Then I did the lift. Then I would go home. I would try to eat something, take my nap. I had to make sure I made sure I took my nap so I can get it an hour to 2 hours in between that window, depending on time. And then I would eat something, go to the arena. I always got there 3.5 to 4 hours. Well, 3.5 hours early. And I would usually see Kobe. I would usually see Ray Allen. Those are some of the guys I would always see. And every arena that I would go into, when I'm working out, the dancers are still practicing.
Yeah.
Getting ready for the game. That's when I was in there, because I wanted to get my shots in, do all the things. It takes a little while for the older guy to get going. And that was kind of my thing. Once I finished shooting, I would go in. Now I'll start my stretching treatment if I needed treatment or whatever I needed to do. So those things were important to me, that I had to do every time. If I skipped some of those, I wouldn't have been able to.
There's a lot of stretching in there, Bobby. There's
a lot of stretching. Heat packs. When the cryo chamber came around, that was the thing. I did cryo after shoot around. This is the back end when we started to have it.
What's worse, the cryo chamber or the ice bath? I mean, what was?
So I did cryo chamber. I only did ice bath for bruises. Well, early in my year, it was only ice bath, so I did that. So that was tough. I used to watch D. Brown and Doug Christie. D. Brown used to get in there. He's like, young fella, and Del Curry. I played with Del, and he's like, young fella, you should get in this thing. We used to make fun, like, man, that's you guys, whatever. And I used to watch Doug Christie get in the cold tub to his neck every day. I'm like, yo, you're insane. And then as I got older, I'm like, the cold tub. and it would revive my legs. And then that's what the cryo chamber started doing. So I started to leave the cold chamber, and cryo became the thing just for, I felt like young again. And then I would do cold tub just for bruising, deep soreness, stuff like that. So that was kind of my routine. And then by the time the game started, there's sometimes, Wendy, I was still rushing, getting, your
checklist,
yeah, stuff in and get done. But I had to do it, and I was willing to do it still.
Bobby, he should have a class that he overcharges 10-year veterans to say Vince Carter's class on how to become for 10-year veterans on how to become a 20-year veteran.
Yeah, once you hit 30, you have to enter.
Yeah.
I've gotten some conversation, some calls, some guys just asking, and they hear these things, and the number one thing you picked up on it. I said stretching was the thing for me, because we play the game like bulk is cool. You want to be strong, but you still need elongate. You need to have limber and feel. You don't want to be tight in this game, like running so much and cutting and stuff. So that was super important for me. And Del Curry gave me this many years ago. He's like, hey, take 10 minutes before you go to bed and stretch. And then when you wake up, take 10 minutes aside to just stretch and get, and you want to be limber as possible. I was like, okay. And then now that I don't do it as much, I feel a difference.
Yeah, I remember, I don't want to speak for LeBron because maybe he had a different mentality, but LeBron's second year, Allen Henderson. Remember Allen Henderson? He played in Indiana. Mm-hmm. He had a long NBA career. He was a bit.
I remember Atlanta as well.
Atlanta, yeah. He would do this band stretch work, and he was maniacal about it. He was probably in his 12th year or whatever, but he was in his mid-30s. And I do think LeBron started stretching more after he was around Allen Henderson. Now, LeBron might hear that and say, no. It wasn't Allen Henderson. It was this, but I watched Allen Henderson stretch, and then I noticed LeBron stretching more. So, and that was when LeBron was 20. So I do think
it's huge. And we say that to young kids now. I have a young kid, and I'm like, yeah, stretch us. He's like, oh my gosh, no. But it keeps you from getting hurt. And like you say, it's a lot of advantages to an athlete to stretch because of, how much we move, run, stop, cut. You want it to be as loose and limber as possible. And now that we're having this conversation, I'm going to start again. And hopefully the next time we talk, I'm like, you know what? I feel a difference because it's proof in the pudding.
If you take one thing away from this stretch, boys, 100%. Girls, men, women,
everyone, implement that into your everyday.
Thank you so much for your time. Congratulations on your honor. Enjoy this week.
Yes.
We've worked many shows together. It's great to be doing something with you again. Enjoy your time at Turner. You're doing great.
Thank you.
Bobby, Vince Carter, you did sign him to a contract extension. I don't know how that negotiation went.
I think it was pretty easy. There was no, it was a different era back then. Yeah. We didn't have the apron. We didn't have, I don't even know if he had to I think the luxury tax was dollar for dollar, maybe.
Do you remember? I have it in front of me. Do you remember how much it was? It was a 4-year contract. He opted out. He opted out of his contract. Probably no rules were
90?
broken. I think it was 4 years and $60 million. 4 years and 60 something million.
I remember I still remember the press conference when we announced it and everything like that. I'll pull it out. I got it right here. So this
you should have got
2000.
I know. I did ask. Just think, guys are about to make 60.
Here you go. 5 years, 80 million.
Oh, 5 years, 80. Okay, it was better.
Yeah.
He opted out, and I'm sure there was no talking before July 1st. I'm sure it was all on the up and up. 5 years.
It's crazy. Vince's salary was basically his first year salary is the equivalent of the non-tax mid-level exception for next year. How about that?
Basically the average player salary. You were on the max, Vince, and it's now the average.
Unbelievable.
Average. Unbelievable.
You should have played 30 years. Come on, Vince. What's the matter?
Hey, maybe I'll make a comeback.
I'm not ruling it out. Thank you for your time. Enjoy this weekend. Take care.
Thank you, man. Thank you.